Hello, my name is Carrie Lentz, and I'm the District Vice President for Edmonton East at TD Canada Trust. TD is very proud to sponsor Eric's New Women's chapter of the Career Mentorship Program. This program will feature a series of modules designed with women in mind for professional growth and personal wellness. Please check back each month for new and exciting installments. Enjoy!
So I was born and raised in Colombia, where I did my undergrad in microbiology and medical laboratory science. And I worked there in clinical labs in hospitals. And after working a little bit in the hospitals, I went on and did a postgraduate program in microbiology and quality control. And then that's when we decided to move to Canada. So my husband, Gabe, my son, Santiago, and myself moved to London, Ontario, Canada over 13 years ago. So the journey in Canada started by studying English, because back in Colombia, we don't learn English like as a second language. So you have classes in school, but they're like, not very in-depth. So I took English, and then through the English classes, they hooked me up to do volunteering in a prostate cancer research lab. So I did some volunteering there. And then the supervisor offered me to do a master's in medical biophysics, which I took the opportunity, and I did a bunch of projects in prostate cancer and breast cancer while doing my master's. I became a lab manager right after that. And then my supervisor got recruited by the University of Alberta at the time. So he left and I stayed in London with my family. So I took a job as a coordinator and project manager for investigator-initiated trials in oncology at the London Regional Cancer Program. So I worked there for about a year. And then at the time, who was my supervisor, who had moved to Edmonton, recruited me to Alberta to be the director of the Alberta Prostate Cancer Research Initiative here in Edmonton. So I worked in that position for a little bit over 4 years. And as a result of the research that we did in the initiative, we developed this amazing, accurate test to develop, to help diagnose prostate cancer in blood. And so we decided to co-found a company between my boss at the time and 3 other members of the group. This company is called Nanostics. And the plan is to further validate the test and commercialize it. So I have been the chief operating officer of that company since 2017. There are a few things that come to mind. So one of them is continuous learning and developing new skills. So basically, I keep asking myself, where do I want to go next and what do I need to get there? So if I give you an example, for example, right after I finished my master's and I became the lab manager, that was easy because I had been working in that lab for like 2 years. I knew how things were done, right? But then when my supervisor at the time left to go to Edmonton and I stayed in London, I was offered this position as a project manager for clinical trials in oncology, but I didn't know how to manage clinical trials in oncology. So what I did is I went ahead and did a program in clinical trial project management. That way I was prepared to do the job. Same thing when I was asked to move to Edmonton to be the director of the Alberta Prostate Cancer Research Initiative. Imagine my shock. I'm like, why are you offering this to me? I don't know if I can do this, but I took the job, and then I went right ahead and did a management development program at the University of Alberta. And that gave me the skills that I needed, or at least polished the ones that I had, and gave me new skills to do the job well, right? Same thing when we jumped from Apcary to Nanostics, it was a corporate level position, an executive position. I had never been in a position like that before. So it was all like, I freaked out a little bit at the beginning, but then I went ahead and did an executive leadership program that again, gave me more skills. So that's continuous learning and developing skills. In addition to that, connections and networking, you're absolutely right. I cannot stress enough of the importance of this in my career. So if it hadn't been because of a connection with the school that connected me with a person that ended up connecting me in John's lab, I wouldn't be here. So I was volunteering there, and then he offered me to do my master's. After I did my master's, it was through connections that I got offered a position as a clinical trials project manager. And then because of the experience I gained then, my ex-boss, and again, my boss now, recruited me to be the director of the initiative. So those are just a few examples of on how this works, right? Another thing I would say is just take risks. Take risks. You are immigrants, you're professional immigrants that came to Canada. So you already took a massive risk moving to Canada. But then another risk I took was right after I finished my English, I desperately needed a job. My family needed like this financial support. We didn't have it, right? But I decided to volunteer because I knew that if I volunteer in the right place, it will put me in a position to get the right job later on. And that's exactly what happened, right? Like I got offered to do my master's, I did my master's, and then I ended up having nice profiled jobs afterwards. Then doing the master's itself, it was huge risk. Imagine I just finished English. I could barely speak any English. Like, you have no idea of the stories that are of me in the lab because of my lack of English at the time. And then here he comes, the supervisor, and says, well, do a master's with me. I'm like, I'm not ready. And I'm freaking out. And I come home and I'm like, Gabe, he offered me a master's. And like, I'm going to say no. And my husband is absolutely not. You have to do it. But I'm not ready. But you have to do it. And that's what I did. I went ahead and did it. And here we are, right? Then moved to Edmonton. That was another huge risk. Like, we were very comfortable in London. We were having fun. We had good jobs. We just bought a house, and there we go. We got offered another position, and then we had to move. And then the last step was to leave my nice position as the director of the Alberta Prostate Cancer Research Initiative at the University of Alberta to move to the company. So I had a nice pension plan, benefits, and a good salary at the university. And then we found a company, and we believed so much in it that we just leave everything behind and moved to the company. And well, so far so good. So you just have to take the risks, right? Of course, I'm just sharing the good news, but at the same time, some of those risks won't pan out positively. But you learn from those mistakes as well, and then that just propels you to move forward. And I will add a fourth one, even though you only asked for 3. And the fourth one is just give your 100% at all times. So I can tell you, it doesn't matter if you continue learning and if you have connections and if you take risks, if your work is sloppy. Like, you need to do a good job. And I know sometimes it's hard to say, give your 100%, because not every day you're 100%. But even if you're not 100%, you can give your 100% at that day. And that may look different from yesterday and tomorrow. But if you do a good job, that shows, and your bosses see it, right? And that translates into results. So, okay, I'll tell you a story. It's a fun story. So I didn't know the concept of mentorship until very recently, to be honest with you. And then I started networking and hearing about mentorship. And so I'm like, oh yes, my boss is my mentor. My boss is my mentor. And so I kept saying, like, in my head, he is my mentor, because he's a great person, great charisma, and he has done great things in life. So what I do is I look closely at the things he does, the way he does, and then I try to model after that, right? And then you learn that there is a fine line. So you model after them, but you find your own authenticity, right? And then you do things your way, but modeling after them. That I also learned with time. But I kept saying that he was my mentor. And then someone asked me, oh, so when did you ask him to be your mentor? I'm like, never. So does he know he's your mentor? No, he doesn't. So he's not your mentor. Like, what do you mean he's not my mentor? Well, there is this mentor-mentee relationship. It has to be official. They have to agree to be your mentor. Like, oh, okay. But again, so I didn't know about it. I have not had official people that I have reached out and say, hey, be my mentor, and I am their mentee. But I do look after people and model after their behaviors and the things they do. Volunteering was the stepping stone for me to get where I am. So as I mentioned before in my story, I started my working relationship in Canada started as a volunteer, right? And that helped me tremendously to improve my language skills. I got acquainted with the Canadian culture, work culture. I learned a ton of new things, and then I got hired. So I understand that for some people, understanding this concept may be difficult. But for example, at APCARE, at the Alberta Prostate Cancer Research Initiative, we do run some non-interventional clinical studies for prostate cancer, and what we do is we offer. I often, like, this started organically. A lot of people started contacting me, wanting to introduce me to some professional immigrant who is a doctor or who has a master's or who worked in the health or biological field, and they're struggling to find a job and they don't know what to do. So what I would do is I would talk to them and try to see what they really want to do and try to guide them and to perhaps connect them with other people. But at the same time, a lot of them wanted to do clinical research. But they don't have any experience doing clinical research, although they do have the knowledge and the soft skills that could translate into a very good clinical research coordinator, for example, or into a good research assistant. So it just came to me. I'm like, well, you know what? We have this research initiative, and we're always overworked, and we don't have enough time to do all the things we have to do. Would you want to volunteer in our site? And then they started saying yes. So we started accepting volunteers, and we created a training program. So we have a number of courses they have to take before they join us, sign all the confidentiality agreements, and do all the things that need to happen. And then they join our group, and they start doing learning basically all the and it all depends on the person, right? So if you only want to come to photocopy paper and give it to us, we're fine with that. But if you want to recruit patients, to learn how to recruit patients and how to enter data and how to do a number of things, we provide them with the training they need to do that. And what happens is we lose all of them because they find jobs, right? They get hired in these positions in other parts of the city, right? So it's great. It's great to see them go. Well, it's sad to see them go, but at the same time, it's great because that is what gives them the opportunity to develop the skills they need to actually find a job. I myself was trapped in this catch-22 at the beginning of my professional career. So right after I finished, when John decided to move from London to Edmonton, I was left with what am I going to do? And I wanted to work in clinical research, so I applied for this job. I went and I interviewed, and it was to be a clinical research coordinator. And I interviewed, and I didn't get the job. And it was funny because you talk about networking. So what happened is I interviewed with the director of the London Regional Cancer Program. And then I went to a conference, and he ended up being in the same conference. So we started talking, and I didn't get the job. So we were talking and said, well, I'm sorry, you interviewed very well, but you don't have any experience in the field. And I had candidates that had experience. So, well, I didn't have another option than to hire the candidates. I'm like, well, but that's so unfair because if you don't hire me, I don't get experience. And you don't hire me because I don't have experience. So it's never going to end. And that's when I thought about it. I'm like, okay, let me volunteer. Let me volunteer for you for a couple of months. And then if you like the way I work, you offer me the job. He didn't accept the option. He offered me another job, and that's how I became the project manager for the investigator-initiated clinical trials. But I myself do believe in volunteering, and oftentimes you even may have experience in the particular field you're applying for from back home, right? But sometimes even the work culture or the way things are done, or I don't know, the procedures, some of the things are different. So Canadian employers may not be as comfortable hiring someone who has not had this Canadian experience. So I feel volunteering is a great way to do that.